there was a stat I saw of how, like the employee satisfaction in certain industries, the sports industry is at the top. And this is also coming from word of mouth as well, from professors and from mentors. Like the satisfactory level of people that are currently working in the sports industry is very high because they understand that it's super competitive on the application side and even just on the workload side, that it is a privilege to want to work in this industry. And this is something that I'm trying to pitch on to the OFPs out there. You have to understand that the sports industry isn't for the faint of heart. You have to be a solid people person. You have to be a person that's hardworking. You have to be a person that's determined, that's ambitious, that's focused, that can be able to adapt. I mean, you have to be built for this. How's it going, OFPs, and welcome to another episode of the Off-Field Players Podcast. I'm your host, Philip Hall, and I hope everybody is having had an awesome weekend. I know it was pretty crazy around in the sports world. Now we just got past the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight for college basketball. I mean, the World Baseball Classic wrapped up last week, and if you're a motorsports fan, it was a pretty wild race for NASCAR at Circuit of the Americas down in Austin. And, Tyler Reddick getting that win. And it was a pretty exciting race to watch. But, how about this Final Four, though? It's going to be a very strange one, I will say, with the teams that made it. San Diego State, Florida Atlantic, Miami, UConn. I mean, it's almost like these are schools that you would literally have to, you could just put in a hat with all the other schools in college basketball. You pull them out, and these are the schools you're going to get. So, it's an interesting Final Four that we'll see this upcoming weekend out down in Houston. And, I'm excited for it. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see who's going to come out on top. I mean, it's really a toss-up. And you just look how well these teams have been playing in this tournament and the surprising wins that they've been getting over these teams. And I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see a school that is just starting to get their name recognized more in college basketball and just trying to put themselves on the map in what has been a relatively interesting season in college basketball, to say the least. And, it's really cool to have a new batch of schools in the Final Four and just being able to, be waiting for that big surprise to happen. Yeah, I'm excited for it. But we're not going to talk a lot about college basketball on this show today. I actually thought that today would be a good episode to talk about, do some storytelling. And I know one thing that I've been wanting to do for the Off-Field Players Podcast is to do, tips and career advice episodes. And of course, I I substitute that with informational interviews that I do with people that I brought on and that I'm still waiting to bring on in the future. And I thought it would be great to, let everybody hear from my perspective and just my path, because I've been wanting to do an episode like this for a while now. Well, I knew that I was going to have to do an episode like this, but I just wanted to find out when it would be a good time. And these past couple of months, I've been in the process of applying for jobs and everything, and just trying to get my life situated post graduation. So, and that process has been going pretty good for me, I would say. I think now I'm starting to make a little bit of progress on that. I'm starting to get more interview calls, starting to get more assistance from mentors, past internship supervisors, and them helping me out and trying to find a job in the sports industry. And just going through that process of doing interviews, doing informational interviews, being on going out networking and doing job applications, going to career fairs, and just everything that you're told to do or that you're recommended to do in order to start your career, not just in the sports industry, but in any occupation you decide to, or any industry that you decide to work in, or that you're trying to use what you study in school to get into. So, it's been a pretty interesting process, and the more I go into it, the more I'm starting to learn about it, and just also want to give all the OFPs the game on what the process is like and how you can be able to navigate it if you're somebody that's just starting out. And of course, if you're somebody that's just starting out, you're going to want to do internships. And this is going to be an episode that's going to be focused slowly on internships and the process of trying to get one in the sports industry. And it's going to be coming from a person that has been blessed and fortunate enough to be able to do 3 internships, all in the span of the 4 years that I've been in school. So I think this would be a great episode for anybody that's working right now to get an internship in the sports industry. I know internship applications for companies are out right now. So I just want to give you guys not just the story of how I've been able to land 3 internships in sports, but also give you some tips and tricks on how to navigate the application process if you're going through that process right now. So I guess just to start from the beginning. So freshman year in college, I was, just getting adjusted here at St. John's, just trying to go through emotions and understanding a little bit more about the sports industry from the classes that I've been taking, especially being a sport management major. And just off of the connection that I have with a mentor of mine that formerly worked for the Oakland Athletics, he, I've known this relative person. I'm going to keep names anonymous because, I don't want to, like expose anybody here. Keep the names confidential. But one of my mentors that I connected with when I was going into my junior year of high school, and we just really hit it off. I expressed a lot on how much I wanted to work in the sports industry and also being an athlete, knowing I played baseball in high school and still had that goal of trying to become a college athlete. I still wanted to make sure that I understood the sports business side as well instead of just slowly focusing on my sport because, again, things happen where you don't live out that dream to become a professional athlete. And as we mentioned on the show that I did last time out, talking about March Madness, most of those guys you see playing college ball, they're not going to go pro in the sport. There's only a handful of those guys that you saw playing in the tournament that have a solid career playing in the NBA or at least playing professional basketball to some degree. But one piece of advice that I give to everybody is to make sure that if you're trying to work in the sports and you're an athlete, still make sure you understand the business aspects of the industry that you're trying to work in or at least perform in. So that was my mindset when I met with my mentor, and he was impressed by it. And he thought to himself that, hey, I can help out Philip in trying to become what he wants to set out to do, which is to be in the sports industry, become a sports exec, and just trying to help navigate his pathway to where he wants to end up someday. So and that's really how it all starts. It all starts with networking with the right people, making sure that your stuff is together, and then promoting yourself and trying to get people involved in your dream aspirations. And that's what I did. That's how I did it. So going through high school, I was, of course, narrowed down where I wanted to go to college, what I wanted to study, of course. I looked at schools that offered sport management as a major. I even looked at schools that offered, relatively connected business majors, like whether that was just straight general business administration, international business, and even also management. So anything that was business related or anything that was sports management related, that's what I wanted to study. So I narrowed it down, decided on sport management. I applied to schools, and I get my decisions back, and I had 3 choices. So the 3 choices that I had for where I wanted to go to school was Loyola Marymount in Los Angeles for management. I also got into Xavier University in Cincinnati, Ohio. They had sport management as the primary major. Also gave me a scholarship. And, of course, St. John's was one of the schools I got into where, the scholarship and the financial aid package was really nice, really rewarding, and also, of course, had what I wanted to study. And also still focusing on the baseball side, I wanted to make sure that school had a solid baseball program as well. just knowing that I was going to try to walk on. I didn't get a scholarship for baseball. All of my scholarships came on the academic side. I had really good grades. Like my SAT scores were all right. But, and also, of course, knowing just my background and everything, I was eligible for a financial aid package, and pretty decent one at that. So when it came time to decide on where I wanted to go, I made sure to narrow it down to knowing the market. And, of course, being in a school in New York City, you're all, like the sports industry, like it's all around you. I mean, we have all the league offices for the big four in professional sports here. Of course, New York has their sports teams in every major professional sport, from basketball, baseball, hockey, football, any sport you could think of is all right here in New York. So, and that's really was the selling point. I visited the school. I, of course, toured around New York City because, like, the first time I came to visit here at St. John's was the first time I ever been to New York City. And, I was sold. I was sold. And even also, I had a contact with another close mentor of mine who was going to school here. I think he was finishing up his master's, I want to say, at St. John's. And he was also a sport management major, too. And at the time, he was working for the New York Mets. And, he actually invited me over to visit the New York Mets front office. And, it just showed me around, told me about St. John's and the sport management program, the people. If I decided to go, like at the time, I wasn't set on the decision yet. But he told me if I did decide to go to St. John's, get in contact with, names of people that he recommended that helped him out along his career path, and just making sure that I was dead set on making the right decision and how it was going to help me and best benefit me for what I wanted to do in my career. So that's what I did. So, I fly back to Oakland and let my parents know, hey, I like St. John's. I want to go there. I feel like I'm going to prosper there. And, let's make it happen. So, St. John's was my decision. I mean, and I have no regrets from what you could tell. I get to St. John's freshman year, wide-eyed freshman, still learning the college life and just trying to adapt to it in any way I can. And whereas, if for the OFPs that are still in high school, my advice for you when you do get to college is, don't try to press so much. Just try to focus on trying to find ways to get your feet wet, be surrounded by the right people, and just try to make the environments like you're comfortable for yourself. Like, don't try to feed off anybody else's comfortability in their environment and how they're trying to navigate. Try to figure that out on yourself. I think that's the one thing that I think I had to learn later on, is that I wasn't trying to make the environment feel comfortable to me. And I did. There are some friends that I did meet freshman year that I still talk to today, but at times those people that you meet your freshman year, they're not gonna stick with you up all the way to your senior year. You're gonna lose some friends, gain some friends along the way, and even in that time frame of the 4 years, you'll know who's gonna be the right people to be around with. You will know. Trust me. Don't think that you have to. Well, still be like a good person to every person you come across, but still understand that not everybody's going to like you for who you are. There's some haters out there. Like, trust me. Like, there's, you may not think that the college campus has haters or people that are seeing what you're doing and the moves that you're making, and not be jealous by that. I mean, believe me, there will be haters. But let this be known now and not later. But still take it with a grain of salt, though. I'm not trying to, put fright in you or anything like that. But still understand that, there are some people that are preying on your downfall. But I still, looking back at that freshman year, it was definitely something that I was still adjusting to, college life. But at the same time, I was still focused on just that career path. So from the connection that I had from, my mentor, he was able to help me get my first sports industry internship with the Oakland A's as a freshman. And this was just off of the moves that he was able to make for me by letting people know, hey, I know Philip, and Philip is this, Philip is that. Here's his resume. He's going to school at St. John's. He's studying sport management. He's really passionate about baseball and, all the other things that were involved in him trying to help me out in some way. And, I just made the move by letting people know about me. His connections over at the team reached out to me just off of the reference that, my mentor made for me. And then this is where, as an OFP, you have to come in to be able to execute on somebody that's trying to open that door for you. So I was, out, making, doing interviews, or I was trying to find a way to get an informational interview with the people that were getting in contact with me from the mentorships, and just trying to, make myself presentable. You have to sell yourself in a lot of ways, and this could be off of the knowledge the stuff that you're doing in school, the stuff that you knew prior before going to college, how you've been involved on campus. And thankfully, when I was able to get the opportunity to talk with people at the A's and just being able to sell myself and being like, yeah, I got into college radio, and I'm also planning on doing broadcasting. And yeah, that was the selling point. But I also wanted to make sure that my interests were still there. Even though I was a freshman, I still wanted to find a way to let them know what I want to do going into the sports industry, what my aspirations are, what interests that I had. So it could either be in business, marketing, corporate partnerships, sales. If you're in social media, it could also be that, broadcasting, anything that you find interest in trying to do in the industry of sports. That's how you got to sell it. So I was able to sell it very well, and not only was I able to get the cosign from my mentor, I was also able to bring contribution to the knowledge of Oakland as a city, since I was born and raised there. And with the A's and their plans right now, I'm sure everybody's been looking at the headlines on what the team's been doing. I wanted to find a way to make myself a part of that, even if I was only just an intern. So I made some PowerPoints, and I also came up with some ideas to be like, hey, with the new Oakland Ballpark project going into place, I feel like this is needed for the community. And I was also trying to do it from a platform to where I could help in a way to kind of revitalize the baseball community in Oakland, because I saw as I was aging, it was slowly dwindling. Like the public parks that had baseball fields, they were very unmaintained. Kids weren't as interested in the sport because they probably weren't able to have the resources to be involved in it. And that was something that I wanted to change just off of the strength of the city of Oakland having a Major League Baseball team. And that's how I led it. I made sure that my emphasis was focused on community, and they were even asking me, like, if we were to bring you on as an intern, what is something that you would want to be interested in doing, or as far as what kind of value can you bring to the organization, knowing that you're from the community. And I gave them X, Y, and Z. I told them, I feel like we could be doing this, like we could be doing that, and we could be doing that. So with that being said, it was all set in stone. I was, I already had signed off on the paper, on the contract to become an intern for the Oakland Athletics. But we have to understand that freshman year wasn't very perfect, because my freshman year happened in 2020. And as we all know, 2020 was a wild year for us. So not only was my college experience like a bit of at a disadvantage because of the pandemic, but I was also not able to do the internship after my freshman year because of how the world was at the time. And that hurt. That was but again, who can I blame for not having the internship or the opportunity to still be able to intern that summer, just understanding that there were bigger problems happening in the world at the time. So, that freshman year, I was at St. John's, but I had to go back home to Oakland and do classes remotely, and still, not having, like that idea of like, oh, is everything going to be okay? When can I go back to school and have just a normal college experience? And that was all happening in the unforeseen future, and just everything that went down that year. So, like freshman, the internship I was supposed to have freshman year didn't happen, but we're gonna go on as I go on. There's that does still play a role in the storytelling of my internship pathway. So, as I'm at home during 2020 pandemic, and even all the way through my sophomore year, because I wasn't able to go back to campus because New York was still kind of locked down, and also there were still like strong restrictions on students coming back, and everything was still kind of closed. So even the students that were on campus, they weren't able to go to the basketball games. They weren't able to have in-person classes, at least for some classes. But yeah, it was strange. It was a strange time. But the whole time I was at home, I ended up taking a job at UPS, being a package handler, because that was really the only thing that was going on. At first, I was doing DoorDash, just making a few deliveries here because the gig economy and even the food delivery services, the demand was pretty high at the time. And even prior to going to St. John's, I did some door dashing part time on my bike. Again, I didn't get my driver's license until I was 19. So and I did kind of get into door dashing when I was in high school. It was actually the summer after I graduated high school, where I was playing summer ball, and I was also doing DoorDash on the side on the off days just to help keep some cash in my pocket. But my mom kind of talked me into trying to get like a stable job, like one where like I had a set schedule, because DoorDash was something I did on my own time. So I ended up taking a night job at UPS, just moving boxes around, loading boxes off of trucks, and doing that whole deal for a year. I was at UPS from May 2020 all the way to May 2021. But looking back at it, even though like I didn't necessarily like the work environment at UPS, I still wanted to make sure that I was getting something out of the job. And this is a piece of advice for a lot of people out there that may be working a job that they probably don't like at the moment. But the one piece of advice that I can give to everybody in that position is be glad that the one thing that your boss doesn't have to tell you to do is how to spend your paycheck at the end of the week. And I took that to heart. The one thing that, or like some of the things that I did with my UPS money, the money that I was making working, like the 4-hour shifts from Monday to Thursday, was I used that money to find ways to invest in myself. And this is something that plays a huge role in how I was able to get my official first internship in college. So what I was doing with the UPS money, I was buying books. I was, buying software to help me learn about certain skills that, were helpful and trying to help build a career path. So, I bought books on, leadership, investing, skill set building, even a few biographies as well, because I like to listen to stories from people that have made it in life and that have became successful, and just like to read how they were able to get there. Because I feel like when you find influence in reading biographies or reading novels, that helps motivates you to want to be in their shoes so you could get in the position to write your own memoir or your own biography someday. And that was my goal. That was my goal when I decided to use my UPS money to buy books. I remember this was mostly in the summer, so since everything was still kind of shut down, the only thing that I could do was just stay in the house and be productive and until I had to go to work. So I just read all day. I started some skills and even started the previous projects of my podcast with my buddy Terrell. Like me and Terrell, that's when we started the Real Deal Bros. If for all my OG followers, everybody knows about the Real Deal Bros. But yeah, that was that's how I did it. That's how I operated, and so I wanted to make sure to still understand that even though I wasn't sure on what was going to happen after the summer ended, I still wanted to make sure I kept myself ready. And that's really all you have to do as an OFP. You have to, even if things aren't going your way, you still have to make sure to keep yourself ready for the opportunity that's going to come. So in my mind, like when it was coming towards the end of the summer and I was still at UPS pushing boxes and everything, I was hoping that I can at least go back to St. John's, even with the restrictions that were going on. But my mom was still kind of concerned about the COVID rates happening in New York at the time. So I didn't really have much of a choice either. So I just had to, take the situation for what it was, and I ended up staying at home my entire sophomore year in college, just doing classes remotely. And even, still being at home, I was still working at UPS. So when I first started UPS, I was actually working afternoon shifts during the summer. But when it time to get back going to school and knowing that my class schedule was on a 3-hour time difference because, I'm still back at home in Oakland while the college that I go to is on the East Coast in New York. So there's, of course, that 3-hour time difference. And it was already kind of late after I signed up for my classes that, it was already kind of like my schedule was set and I couldn't really go back and change it or at least try to adjust my schedule at work just off of, them understanding like, hey, you're here for full time and you got to be here when you need to be here. So I ended up shifting my 4-hour shifts from the afternoon to night. So I would go to work at 6 o'clock at night, and I wouldn't be done until about 10. And even some nights I had to stay a little bit longer because somebody, wasn't able to come in on the line, and I had to fill in that spot. So some nights I wouldn't get home until maybe about like midnight, 1 a.m. And mind you, like with school coming back up and with a 3-hour time difference, and I like to sign up for morning classes. I had a 7:30 class, every day, like during the week. So I was getting up from about 4:30 a.m. just to go to class on my computer. I'm not talking about 4 a.m. having to get up and then commute to school. Nah, I was literally woke up out of the bed. It's 4:30 a.m. I'm coming off a night shift at UPS pushing boxes, only getting about 3 to 4 hours of sleep, and then waking up, flipping up my laptop in my bed, and going to class. And I kept my camera on the Zoom every class that I was in. Yes, I'm that type of student. I'm that type of student that likes to keep their camera on so the professor can see me in the classroom. And I did it with pride too. Didn't matter how ugly I was looking that day, I still made sure that my presence was felt in the classroom. And that's also another mindset that I encourage OFPs to have. Make sure to, for every environment that you're in, make sure to let people know that your presence is felt. Don't be that student that just shows a black screen. It annoys the mess out of professors, but at least the professor will have a little bit more respect for you when you turn it on. Or at least when you're willing to turn your camera on in the online class. So let that be a lesson to everybody. But going back to the story, I spent the whole fall semester of my sophomore year waking up for class at 4:30 a.m. practically every day, and then working night shifts at UPS. And even during that time frame when I was done with my classes, I was outside from just doing, homework and stuff, I was also making sure to stay up with my reading. I try to read at least an hour a day. That was one of the habits that I developed for myself over time. And even also just coming up with new ideas for my podcast, and even just trying to keep up with what sports were going on at the time, even though there weren't a ton of sports that were going on at the time. This was back when all the sports leagues were shut down for the majority of the year. But I still made sure to keep up with the developments that were happening within the sports industry. So that was really the short the short story of how the fall semester went. Now, transitioning over to the spring semester, I was hoping that now I could finally go back to St. John's, but I still had to stay at home because of reasons that we already established. So yeah, but I think my spring semester got was a little bit less strenuous than my fall semester. My sleep schedule improved slightly. I was still waking up relatively early, like on the West Coast, just to go to class. I think my spring semester, most days I was waking up at 5 a.m., maybe like 6 a.m. some days, just to go to class. Well, and I was still working night shifts as well, so my work schedule didn't change. And even the one thing that I was learning from working at UPS is that like the people that I worked with on the line, these were, say, ex-military, some old guys that had a plan after high school or had a plan, but they just got distracted. And just hearing these stories and them projecting it on me, even though I didn't really get it at the time because I was just so hard-strung on just getting my 4 hours in, then going home and not having to worry about all the stuff that I was going through, I still would say that I learned something from that. Because I feel like you learn a lot from people that have made mistakes than maybe the mistakes that you made on your own. And that put a fire in me. That motivated me to be like, because my mom always reminded me when I would come home and complain to her about like, oh, this old guy said something to me at work and I didn't like it, or I feel like I'm getting disrespected by my supervisors, even though like I come on time every day, like I'm willing to do the extra work, and I'm even trying to ask for help, but they still find some way to kind of disrespect me. My mom always reminded me that the job was temporary because she knew that. Well, I instilled in myself that this was something that I didn't want to do for the rest of my life. And my mom titled my job at UPS a character building job. And that's something that really, really struck me, just looking back on it now. Character building was something that I really did learn from UPS because it made me realize that when you get to the big time, you always want to stay humble. You always want to stay humble and stay grateful for where you started and where you can end up someday. And that was me. I still had ambitions. I still had high goals for myself, high expectations. But I was in a position to where I was building my character when I felt that I already had some character building, but I needed more. I needed to have that experience of humility to understand the fortunate opportunities that I'm striving to get to someday. And that's the message that I'm trying to, put on to everybody, that for most folks, when you get that first job in the sports industry, it's not going to be very glamorous. And you have to understand that first job is going to be a character building experience to battle harden you for the bigger job. Because that was me. UPS battle hardened me to be prepared for the bigger opportunities. Because you can't just go into a big opportunity and be like, oh yeah, I'm here, like I'm hyped up, like I'm ready to go. Like, no, you have to be able to experience a moment of pain to understand the gratitude and just the cureness that you have for wanting to get where you want to go. So, and being at UPS did lead to a happy ending, and also just me still staying on top of my schoolwork. And I don't know if I mentioned this yet, but during my whole sophomore year, even with having to wake up at the crack of dawn just to go to class on my laptop, I was still able to get straight A's, both in the fall and in the spring. So straight A's my entire sophomore year, especially with the strenuous work schedule, the lack of sleep that I was getting each night. Again, 3 to 4 hours of sleep after lifting boxes and everything at work, and then having to commute back home doing that. Still able to get straight A's for both semesters, and still being able to stay on top of school. Now, this led to my first official internship. So I had a professor that I'm still really close to today. He actually helped me get a recommendation letter on my LinkedIn earlier today, and I remember I took his class in the spring sophomore year. It was a sports marketing class, and he asked the students in the class one day to give an example of marketing, and I since I was big on NASCAR, I wanted to give him a NASCAR example. So, and I guess looking back on it, I guess he was so impressed by how I was able to, present my NASCAR example when he asked a question about giving an example of sports marketing class. He led me to get in contact with the team president over at 2311 Racing. So this is where you having to stay make sure that your presence is felt comes in the classroom. So knowing that I wanted to have strong connections with my professors, that professor was able to, help me out by getting me in contact with somebody that I, didn't really have any business associating with, but at the time, but still being able to present myself in a way where I was serious about what I wanted. And this professor helped me get to that. So he sends me over his contact information, the team president, and I introduced myself saying, "Hey, I'm Philip. I'm big in NASCAR. I'm studying sport management here at St. John's, and I would just like to stay in contact with you." That's all you really have to do. First off, when you make that first introduction with somebody that you're trying to network with, just make a simple introduction. Don't go over the top with it, and just I look forward to staying in touch with you. If you want to do an informational interview or anything like that, please let me know. Do something like that. Start off with informational interviews, and then kind of just generally, build that relationship up, because that's really all it is in the sports industry right now. It's just all about trying to make sure that you connect yourself with the right people, and that you're also trying to make sure that you can sell yourself in the best way. So I thought I could go a little bit more further on with trying to sell myself up. Not so much to maybe get an internship, but still presenting to my passionate side for the sport of NASCAR. So what I did when I got in contact with the team president, and this is also one of the tips that I recommend for everybody, is that if there's not a job out there that is suitable for you, try to make the job for yourself, especially if you're trying to go after an internship role, because internships, they're starting to become available, but at times maybe there's some companies out there, some sports organizations that aren't too sold on trying to bring on interns, because it's almost like part-time work. Well, it is part-time work in a way, but I still wanted to make sure that I could at least present something that I can help bring to the table. And mind you, 2021 was the first season for 2311 Racing in NASCAR, and just me knowing that, I thought, well, maybe they're trying to just build the groundwork and trying to introduce new ideas. So that's what I wanted to do. I created PowerPoints to send out to the team president, talk about we could tell Bubba's story. Bubba Wallace being one of the drivers for the team. Tell Bubba's story in this way. We could start a program for bringing future interns, or at least try to encourage more diversity into the sport of NASCAR, and just doing certain things like that. Those small presentations to send out to the team president to let them know, hey, I have some ideas that I feel like can help benefit the platform for what you're trying to present as one of the few black-owned race teams in the sport, especially with the only current black driver in the sport right now. And it helped. It helped that I took that extra step and made it so that I was made to them that I was serious about wanting to contribute in some kind of way, even if doing an internship program wasn't one of the things on their mind as a first-year team. But I like to say that I kind of, just forced them to be like, hey, you guys can be doing more, and you need some young minds to come in to help you build the platform. And they took it. They saw the initiative that I took, and they saw how serious I was, and even still getting that help from my professor to be like, hey, because I shared the PowerPoints with him too, and he was impressed, and so was the team president, and that helped me. That helped me get in, like open that door to talk with the social media manager over there. Great guy, by the way, and he's not at 2311 Racing anymore, just from what I've recently found out, but. He was definitely a really good supervisor to me. And so, I'm moving the mic a lot. So I meet with him. I go through the interview process. I get the internship opportunity. And going back to what I said, like the one thing that your boss doesn't tell you is like how to spend your paycheck. I was able to use the money that I was making at UPS. Because I was so determined to get that internship opportunity. I was actually, the money that I was putting on the side, like saving for like a rainy day. And that was the one thing I learned too from reading financial literacy books, was I was able to understand the concept of money. Like, since I was in a position where I was making money, I started getting into investing, started getting into saving. And that was one of the things I did with my UPS money. But the one thing I was doing was I was putting some money on the side, probably just for, I don't know, like a rainy day fund or something bigger in the future. But then my mindset started to change when I was going through the process of talking with 2311 Racing. Was the money I was saving was the money that I was going to use because at first they were trying to, see if I wanted to do the internship remotely, but I was like, nah, I want the real experience. So I used the UPS money to save up to go to North Carolina for the summer and at least have like some money for like living expenses and certain other things just for me to get there and, and still be able to, keep support myself. And yeah, and it helped. Like just having that mindset of knowing that I was saving the money for something bigger and just staying consistent at it. And just knowing that I'm not going to use this money for anything else. I have this plan out here, and I'm going to do the best I can to make sure that I put myself in a position to be able to go to North Carolina for the summer and intern for the team. So that's what I did. Just during doing that process, staying in contact with the team president and having good presentation in my interviews, I was able to get my first official internship at 2311 Racing, and then the story tells itself from there. And I go back and I tell people all the time that was one of the greatest summers of my life, and I would want to relive it over and over again because it was worth that much. And just the sacrifice and the hard work that I put into just to make sure that I was able to get that internship and let that be, the pathway and trying to get my foot in the door in the sports industry. That's the kind of determination you need to have. So, past that summer, I get the experience. I learned a lot on the job, and even kept my connections there, and the connections I have to this day. That's what helped me out. So after that summer, I was able to finally get back to St. John's, be back on campus for my junior year, and that's when I started getting the sports broadcasting a lot. I was calling games for St. John's, and everything was starting to kind of get back to normal a little bit in a way. The classroom environments didn't feel as tight knit or as separated as it used to be, and I just had the classroom experience was what I want. I'm somebody that prefers to go to class in person. I don't know how everybody else feels, but I like the classroom environment because I like to feel connected with my professors and I like to feel connected with my classmates, and just making sure that my presence is felt and putting my passion and my interest in education on display. And because these are sport management classes, and to work in the sports industry, you have to have those kind of people skills. And and I enjoyed it. I loved it. So going into how I was able to get my second internship, second and third one, was I like knowing that I had experience working with a NASCAR team. I wanted to go a little bit more. I first discovered about the NASCAR Diversity Internship Program, and I think I applied for it previously, but I don't know. Like, I guess my application didn't get seen or anything. Or actually, no. I missed the deadline to apply for it my sophomore year. So junior year, I wanted to make sure that I was in it. So I applied for the NASCAR Diversity Internship Program, and I made sure to keep my connections in line because, there's folks at 2311 Racing that were able to help me get in contact with the people over at the sanctioning body and the headquarters at NASCAR out in Charlotte. And, I go through that application process. I go through the interview process, and they place me at Sonoma Raceway. But here's the story of why they placed me there. So about a few weeks before the semester was going to end, this is the spring. So a few weeks before my junior year was going to be over, I get an email from one of the connects I have over at the Oakland A's. And she tells me, "Hey, Philip, that internship you had that you were supposed to have your freshman year, we're bringing the internship program back, and I wanted to reach out to you to see if you wanted to still be a part of it." And as much as I was excited about that, I still wanted to make sure that, oh man, it was a good problem. It was a good problem that I had these opportunities lined up. But I wanted to make sure that I was able to adapt with them. So knowing that I already had the NASCAR offer on the table to intern there at Sonoma Raceway, and now the A's coming in and giving the opportunity that I had my freshman year, or that I was supposed to have my freshman year, but didn't happen because of COVID, this put me in a bit of a situation. but it was a good situation, though. So what I was able to do and how I was able to adjust was I let the supervisor at Sonoma Raceway know, hey, the A's got back to me about an internship opportunity I was supposed to have freshman year but wasn't able to take it because of the pandemic. And I wanted to see if I could work my schedule around splitting time at Sonoma and still being able to stick to my commitment with interning with the A's, just knowing what the circumstances were when I initially received the offer from them. And they were very helpful. They understood the impact of getting that having an internship your freshman year, but not being able to do it because of certain circumstances like that. Like just having that cosign, having that, respect of people understanding that your aspirations matter a lot, especially when you're in college, because you're in college, it's a possibility that you only get one internship, and these are like once in a lifetime opportunities that come your way. So they were able to make the adjustment. I was able to do both NASCAR and the A's interning in the same summer. As I was splitting time during the weeks, I would go to Sonoma Raceway at the racetrack, first half of the week, and I would either be working from home or working at the team office or working at the Coliseum with the A's, like in the second half of the week. So I was splitting time, just going back and forth to both places, and still being able to manage the workload that I was given at both jobs. And that I feel like I'm very impressed with me being able to do that, and just also trying to display and trying to tell the story of how hungry you have to be able to work in the sports industry, because it's a daunting task. It's very daunting to not only do 2 internships, but really just to work. And because I'm working long hours. I mean, like for Sonoma, I like when we were prepping up for NASCAR weekend and even NHRA weekend, I would be at the track, like leading up to race weekend. I would have to show up at the track at like 7 a.m. in the morning, and we wouldn't be done until maybe about 7 p.m. at night. So we're like for the weekend leading up to the Cup race on Sunday, we were working like 10-hour days just to get everything ready. Getting the midway set to go, getting making sure that like all the booths were set up for the sponsors, that came out and the corporate partners that came. And it was event planning. That's really what it was. And, working those 10-hour days and just still trying to make sure I stayed healthy and stayed rested to, get ready to go work for the A's and do my time there for them. That just showed, I feel like that experience, that the workload that I had when I was at UPS and getting up for class, and even just having to, adapt and having to, be able to keep myself level, and that prepared me to be able to carry on those 2 internships in that summer. And that's the kind of mentality you have to have, even if you're working 1 internship. Heck, even if you're working a full-time job, you have to understand that it is a privilege to want to work in the sports industry. And I'm sure any person that you ask that's working in the sports industry, they're very grateful to be in the position that they are, because there was a stat I saw of how, the employee satisfaction in certain industries, the sports industry is at the top. And this is also coming from word of mouth as well, from professors and from mentors. The satisfactory level of people that are currently working in the sports industry is very high, because they understand that it's super competitive on the application side, and even just on the workload side, that it is a privilege to want to work in this industry. And this is something that I'm trying to pitch on to the OFPs out there. You have to understand that the sports industry isn't for the faint of heart. You have to be a solid people person. You have to be a person that's hardworking. You have to be a person that's determined, that's ambitious, that's focused, that can be able to adapt. I mean, you have to be built for this. And that's the one thing that I made sure, from being that young kid who had the first encounter with my mentor, still being able to grow off of it, and still being able to work hard to come to move across the country from Oakland to New York, come to a prestigious university like St. John's, still being able to stay on top of my classwork, making Dean's List 3 years in a row, and trying to make it 4, on my way out as I graduate in a month and a half, and still trying to understand, you have to be willing to want to do this. This is something that people just don't. The sports industry isn't an industry that somebody just falls into. They have to want to be here. They have to want to, be a part of this, even if they're not on the field. This is why the podcast is called Off-Field Players. This is why I created the term off-field player, because that mindset that I had as an athlete, as a baseball player, is the mindset that I also had trying to be a maven of understanding the sports industry and the business aspects of it. And that's what I'm trying to say. And that's why I wanted to share the story of how I was able to get those 3 internships during the past 4 years, or at least in that span. And just to finish it out with some tips on what I can give to you to be able to, for someone that's in the process of applying to sports and to sports internships at the moment, is if there is not a job out there that a company's not listing up, try to make the one piece of advice is try to make the job for yourself. Try to reach out to whoever the hiring manager is, whoever's the supervisor, and see about making a position for the company, because that's one thing that a company, doesn't have to do. Even if you craft a position that the company's going to think is going to benefit them, then that puts you over the top in the application process. I mean, all you're doing in the application process is just making your resume, filling out the fill and answer questions, and just sending it out. Why not go a little bit extra? Try to make a PowerPoint and send it out to the hiring manager over there, and see if and let them be the one to determine, hey, this is something that we can use at the company, and this is a person that's willing to do the work for it. That's one piece of advice I would give. Another piece of advice is make sure to be in good standing with your professors. And this is speaking for all the college students. For all the college students that are interested in wanting to work in the sports industry, be in good standing with your professors, because you never know. That professor can possibly be the one to help you get your first job or your first internship coming out of school. And yeah, but it's also good to have that you have like somebody in your corner that's willing to vouch for you if you need that extra oomph as you're going through the application process. Because doing that and having somebody co-sign for you, that's going to get you a little bit further. Now, especially if they know people that are the hiring managers at a sports organization. If you have somebody that you can refer to, especially if it's a professor, let them be the person to help you out. Like that, I feel like I can't stress that enough. And when I look around, like I see people that just don't really like their professors as much, but always try to find the good in the people that you're receiving knowledge from, especially if you're a sport management major. For all the sport management classes that you're taking, those are the professors you want to stay in contact with, and those are the professors you want to get help from. So that's another piece of advice I would give. Lastly, the last piece of advice that I would give to anybody that's trying to land a sports internship opportunity at the moment is stay faithful, stay determined. Make sure that you don't let an opportunity slip by the wayside because you were too doubtful to fill out the application, or you felt that you weren't going to get any benefit from it. But like I said, with the job that I had at UPS and getting the reminder from my mom that, hey, it's a character building job, because where you are right now, it's going to be worth something bigger. And yeah, like that first internship, it may not be pretty, but it will help you build character, because you're going to experience a lot, you're going to learn a lot, and you're going to gain something from just being a part of an industry that, like I said, is a privilege to work in. So yeah, I'm going to close it that way. That's a good way to close it. Well, but as always, we like to end our episodes with talking about the sports jobs of the week. But this time, knowing that this was an internship-focused sports job of the week, I'm going to extend an olive branch for those that are looking for sports internships at the moment. So this will be the sports internships of the week. So right now, there is a live entertainment internship application open over at the Memphis Grizzlies. So yeah, anybody that's interested in doing live entertainments, you can find that on LinkedIn. Again, it's with the Memphis Grizzlies, so make sure to go apply for it as soon as you can. There's also a public relations internship opening at the UFC, the Ultimate Fighter Championship, excuse me. You can find that on LinkedIn as well. These are all LinkedIn, by the way. So, and there's also a partnerships internship open for the Los Angeles 2028 Olympics Committee. So, yeah, like this is like more for what's going to happen in the future. So, of course, the Summer Olympics are going to be in Los Angeles in 2028. So they're already getting the committee team lined up for that. But they do have internships open right now. So, again, it's a partnerships internship for LA 2028. You can find that on LinkedIn. And lastly, there is a partnership marketing internship open at Barstool Sports, also on LinkedIn. So, yeah, you can find that on LinkedIn. Make sure you go take a look. But, yeah, that's going to be all for the Off-Field Players podcast. I want to thank everybody that watched till the end. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you took something from it. And, yeah, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit the notification bell to look out for future episodes. And if you're tuning in on Spotify, make sure to share the link. It does help out a lot as I get more listeners and as we help continue to grow the OFP family. But that's going to wrap it up. I've been Philip Hall, your host. Thank you for tuning into the Off-Field Players podcast. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay determined. As always, make sure to achieve what you believe.